had a real hankering for some beans, just the way my mom usually makes them. So I went to the grocery store to buy the ingredients that I needed. I had my list, and I needed a pound of dried beans, some diced tomatoes, ham, bacon, chipotle peppers. But with the scarcity of products available these days, everything was messed up. With the beans, there weren't the usual 3 or 4 brands to choose from. There was only one, and it wasn't the one that I normally buy. I walked up and down the aisle to make sure that I hadn't missed them in some other section. But no, there was only one brand. And they only had the beans in 10-pound bags. I only needed 1 pound. I mean, I love beans, but 10 pounds worth, not so much. With the other ingredients for the recipe, I found the same dynamics at play. Either a scarcity of selections or portions that were way too large. I realized that day that I had taken for granted the vast variety of products that normally are available to us in the US. In many ways, Holy Week this year will feel like my trip to the grocery store that day. Traditionally, Holy Week is filled with some of the most beautiful liturgies, comprised of some of the most treasured rituals that we only celebrate at this time of year. Having had these available to us throughout our lives, now that these liturgies and rituals that provide us much comfort and inspiration are scarce and not present to us at all, we will feel lost. Of all the rituals associated with Holy Week, my favorite one is normally done today as part of the Holy Thursday liturgy. There's something really beautiful about this ritual, where we follow the humbling and loving example that Jesus set before his disciples and us on the night before he died by washing the feet of his disciples. I love seeing couples coming up and washing each other's feet, and parents washing the feet of their children, and children washing the feet of their siblings, and parishioners washing the feet of fellow parishioners with whom they have no connection except for being fellow disciples of the Lord. As will be the case with many of the Holy Week liturgies this year, we will have to fast from these liturgical rituals in our beautiful church. I know that I am not alone in missing this beautiful ritual, along with all the others prescribed for this week. But as lamentable as it is that we can't come to church to partake in these rituals, there are a few good and noteworthy consequences that are part of all of this. First off, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. I hope that through this trying experience of not having access to Mass and the sacraments, that we will come away from this experience with a deeper appreciation for the richness of our liturgical life, for the Mass, for the sacraments, for all the Catholic rituals and sacramentals. When something is always so readily accessible to us, it can be easy for us to become complacent or even take things for granted. Secondly, it would be good for us to understand that the ritual of the washing of feet on Holy Thursday is actually an optional rite. We're not required to celebrate the rite, but because it has become so popular in many parts of the world, including the US, it has become rather commonplace. Why is this ritual optional and not mandatory, you might ask? Well, as with all rituals, this ritual is an expression of a much deeper reality. The washing of feet is not just a reenactment of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. It is a certain sense of recalling, but more importantly, it's also a commitment on our part to live our lives in humble and loving service to each other, to love as Jesus asked us to love. Perhaps it is good that this ritual is optional. Can you imagine celebrating this ritual in an environment where animosity exists amongst its members, where no one gets along, where people are in competition with each other. A ritual in this environment would make it meaningless and perfunctory. Now, the reason why we're not observing this ritual in church this year is not because our community doesn't get along or because people don't love or practice service. We're not doing it this year out of loving concern for the health and well-being of all our members. But maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to spend some time in reflection and ask ourselves, how well do we practice humble and loving service towards each other? Do we sometimes find ourselves doing it only because we feel that we have to? Or do we do it only because the pastor asked me to do something and I don't know how to say no to him? Or perhaps we're doing it because everyone else is doing it and we don't want to look like the bad guy. Or maybe we do it because we want to impress others or even win God's favor. The ritual really loses its meaning, doesn't it? If we aren't practicing and really living out the meaning behind it in our daily lives. My friends, I encourage us to reflect on our commitment to love as Jesus loved and our commitment to service. And let it begin with the people that we may find ourselves living with in this time of social distancing. We've been forced to live together, work together, and go to school together for a few weeks now. How's that going? Do we still love each other? Do we still care about each other? Are we still looking out for each other? Are we willing to be of service to each other? Spouse to spouse, parent to child, child to parents, sibling to sibling. I know it hasn't been easy these last few weeks, but I hope we can honestly say and wholeheartedly say that love does live in this household. Yes, our lives are oriented towards service. If that is the case, my friends, and I know it is, I would invite you tonight to ritually wash each other's feet as an expression of your affirmation of love and service being the hallmarks of your family life. You can find a suggested ritual in the flock note attached to this video. And for those of you who live alone, don't fret. As a celibate, I feel your pain, and you'll find suggestions for you as well. Dear friends, one day soon, our grocery store shelves will be restocked with all the items that give life and flavor to our dinner tables and to our families. The same will hold true for our church. One day soon, this beautiful church will once again be filled with all that gives life and flavor to the table behind me, to the meal that we partake from it, and to the life and meaning and faith that it gives to our parish family. Until that day comes, my friends, that we can gather around the table once again, let's pray for each other.